at Le Bourget at COP21 right outside Paris, and we're here with Professor Niklas Hohne. Did I pronounce that?
Very good. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, good. And this is amazing. And why it's amazing is because I'm sitting here now with probably maybe the world's expert, maybe, okay, but certainly one of the preeminent scientists, really expert in the matter of the gap. And the gap we're speaking of is the gap between where we're predictably headed in terms of our carbon emissions and the temperature increase, and what's required to keep us within the safety zone of what has been generally accepted would be to a maximum of a 2 degree Celsius increase above pre-industrial temperature. And Niklas is the lead author of the UNEP emissions gap report from 2010 to 2015, which I very much appreciate, because as someone that got into this relatively late, a couple years ago, the only thing I was interested in is what's the gap? How much time do we have? What's it going to take to bridge that? What's predictable? And your report really became my main resource in terms of getting that information. So I really, really appreciate it. You also created the Climate Action Tracker that tracks commitments and actions of countries on climate change. And you recently became a professor, and you're, what's the university?
Wageningen in the Netherlands.
Ah, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, good. So thank you very much for having this conversation with us, because I see it as really, a way for people, regardless of how much they know about climate change, to actually get a sense of what the gap is. And for people like me that aren't scientists, that just kind of lay people, and so that's the conversation we're here to have.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. So how I thought we kind of lay it out is just kind of, first of all, to just kind of go through how you track it, what the metrics are. So for example, one of the things is the carbon budget. And so the excuse me, CO2 budget. And the way I see it is, it's kind of like if you have a balloon, there's as much air that you can put into the balloon before the balloon pops. And in that same way, there is an amount of the total amount of carbon that we can put into the atmosphere. And if we go beyond that kind of allocated total amount, then we've gone beyond the safety zone. Is that accurate?
That's exactly the case. I mean, the major greenhouse gas CO2 stays in the atmosphere for a very long time. So if we emit it today, it will have its effect for a very long period.
Yes.
So that basically means we have a finite amount of CO2 that we can emit. Yes. That corresponds to a temperature level that we reach in the end.
Yes.
So the more CO2 we emit over a long period of time, the higher the temperature increase will be. Yes. And the less we emit over the century, the lower the temperature increase will be. So people call it a budget. So you have a full budget over the full course of the full century.
Yes. Okay, good. And then the other metric or the measurement is just the annual emissions. So the amount of gigatons that we emit annually, which also is directly correlated to the amount that's the total amount, but also what's in the report is a lot of statistics in terms of, well, what's the annual emittance? Is it going down? Is it increasing? Also, at what point will it peak? Will the increase peak and then begin to go down? So that's also kind of a critical way of having people get a sense of where we are in the gap, right?
Exactly. So if you have that budget, you can spend that budget over the course of the full century.
Yes.
And it basically means if you spend more today, you have less to spend afterwards.
Yes.
And it's even in that way that you can say if you overspend today, you could theoretically even make up for that later by taking CO2 out of the atmosphere. So translating this budget to yearly and annual emissions, there's a bit of freedom. You can do more today and you have to do less afterwards.
Yes.
Or you do less now, but then you have to catch up. The very important thing about this is it's a finite budget. It's at the end at one point.
Yes.
So that always means in all situations you have to reduce emissions to zero because the budget will be depleted.
Yes.
So for any temperature increase that you would like to have, you have to reduce emissions to zero. The earlier you do that, and the lower the budget was until then, the lower will be the temperature increase. But it's very clear from the climate system perspective that you need to reach zero emissions if you want to stabilize the climate.
Okay, good. Now, to get to the budget, and then this is from the report. It says, considering a theoretical situation in carbon dioxide is the only anthropomorphic greenhouse gas, the IPCC estimated a maximum total carbon budget of 3,670 gigatons of carbon dioxide for a likely chance of staying within the 2 degrees Celsius limit. However, since emissions began growing rapidly in the late 19th century, we've already emitted about 1,900 gigatons of carbon dioxide. In addition, a variety of other substances have an impact on global warming, also emitted and further reduced the remaining budget to about 2,900 gigatons. So the total budget, how much room we've got is 2,900 gigatons, kind of the net budget, right?
Exactly.
Okay, good. Leaving less than about 1,000 gigaton carbon dioxide to emit in the future. It seems like we've already hit what they said was the limit in kind of what am I thinking wrongly, or is it?
Yeah, what we thought is the limit 5 years ago,
Yes.
when you say you start immediately with reductions, is the 44 gigatons in 2020.
Yes.
But it's now unlikely that that path will be taken. And we now have to look at other scenarios that increase emissions now and then go down much faster.
Yes.
And that is not an optimal scenario, because that will definitely be more difficult and more expensive.
Yes.
Because we basically overspend today and we need to make up for that later.
Yes.
Just imagine what that means. If we need to make up for it, that basically means we need to retire installations that are built right now, like coal-fired power plants.
Yes.
We need to retire them before the end of their life. If you build a coal-fired power plant, if you build a coal-fired power plant today,
Yes.
it will last for 40 years. Yeah, that's the usual lifetime of such a power plant. But we also see that all the trajectories that go in the direction of 2 degrees, they basically say that the electricity sector has to decarbonize and has to reduce its emissions much faster than other sectors. And it basically says that emissions from electricity have to be zero already by 2050. That's in 35 years from today.
Yes.
So it basically says that if you build a coal-fired power plant today,
Wow.
it will not operate until the end of its life
Wow.
if you are serious about the 2-degree target. And that's what I'm saying. So if we do the wrong things today, build coal-fired power plants, it will become very expensive afterwards, shutting these things off before the end of their economic life.
Wow. Now, I know there's been some debate, because I've been at the previous conferences in Bonn leading up to this, and they were saying that 2 degrees is the safety limit. And then it got a bit louder. It seemed, well, 2 degrees probably isn't. Maybe we should bring it down to 1.5 degrees, since I think we're now at approximately 0.9 degrees. Is that right? Increase?
Exactly.
Yeah. And however, I've also heard that, as you said at the beginning, with the carbon that's already in the atmosphere that stays there for hundreds of years, even if we stopped emissions today to zero, we would predictably increase to 1.5 degrees. Is that accurate? So that essentially the 1.5 degree limit is gone.
Yeah, well, the climate system works in a way that, as I said, CO2 stays in the atmosphere for very long.
Yes.
So if we emit today,
Yes.
we see the full temperature effect of the CO2 in the atmosphere only in the future. So as you said, if we stop emitting completely today, temperature would still rise and then stabilize at a certain level. And that level, there's a question on how high that is. I think it's still below 1.5 degrees, but the budget available to then still stay below 1.5 is very, very small, and we have to reduce emissions drastically, much faster than for 2 degrees. And I think reaching 1.5 degrees, which is very important for many countries actually, will be a big, big challenge. The hope is that for a limited period of time, maybe that limit is breached, and then the temperature would slowly decline again to 1.5. But whether that's really possible from the climate system, there's a bit of an uncertainty there.
Okay. Now, I know this is going to be is maybe not even answerable. I don't know, kind of in the simplistic way that I'm going to be asking the question. But for the person, you know, out there that just is kind of wondering, okay, well, what has to happen by when? Or what series of things or results have to be produced by when, so that we have at least a running chance, a good shot at staying within the 2-degree limit? You know, is it because, you know, again, I hear things, but I don't know, you know, how to put it in perspective of the gap. So, for example, when I heard the representative from China give the opening remark and say that, you know, that there is an accomplishment and that they would be, you know, peaking their emissions by 2030 and then reducing. Well, I think, okay, well, in terms of the gap, I mean, is that far beyond what's acceptable? Is that keep us within the 2 degrees? Is it not? So is there any kind of that you could speak to kind of the layman in terms of what is it? What is left? Is 2 degrees even possible? It is possible, but we have to buy this, and we'll be able to tell by 2020 if it's still possible, or kind of what is the break point, if there is any such thing like that.
I think the easiest way to look at it is in the long term, and it's a finite budget, and it's depleted at a certain point, and that means that emissions have to go to zero.
Yes.
And that's, I think, understandable for everybody. But that means a complete transformation of our energy system. Right now, our energy system is based on fossil fuels, and we need to completely flip that by, first of all, using less energy, being more energy efficient, and second, by supplying that leftover energy with carbon-free sources, in particular renewable energy. And that's basically what needs to happen.
Right.
And the question is when it happens and where it happens. There's some freedom because it's a budget, so
Right.
if you do more here, you can do less there.
Right.
So there's the freedom, but the end point is the same, it's zero.
Yes.
And to put a few numbers in there, it would work, for example, if we would make the whole electricity system completely carbon-free by 2050, by the middle of the century. So no more CO2 emissions from the global electricity system. That means no coal, no gas, well, a little bit gas maybe to balance the renewables, but actually in essence it's zero emissions from the electricity system already by 2050. It would also work at the same time. We would have to build very, very efficient houses, for example. Right now houses are using a lot of energy for heating and cooling, but we already now have technologies available to make them very, very energy efficient, basically zero energy houses. We can build them today, and they are built. And we would need to drastically scale up those zero energy houses. Basically all new houses would have to be built zero energy from now on. And transport, a transition towards 100% renewables would mean a transition towards a lot of electricity and away from liquid fuels. So we would go away from liquid fuels in transport, gasoline, towards electric transport. So that's a transition that's necessary, and we would basically by 2050 all drive electric cars, or even better, use public transport. So those are the kinds of things that need to happen.
And does that all translate into, because I know there's been talk about what's included in the text in terms of decarbonization and any kind of hard targets, and there was at least floated full decarbonization by 2050. So is that all part of what that would be? Are you essentially saying that same thing?
Yeah, you need to translate this little freedom you have with the budget into something that the international community can agree to. And they can't agree to very much details. They have to have a high-level line. And the way people are trying to frame that high-level line is to say decarbonization, so basically transforming the energy system to be carbon-free. And you call it decarbonization, and then in the best event you would add a date when that has to happen globally. And some people say full decarbonization by 2050, some others say in the second half of the century, or some say by the end of the century. That's a bit of the negotiation space. But I would hope that here in Paris they can agree on some kind of language like that, because all the citizens, the investors, the companies, the governments, they understand better that emissions have to go zero than that they have to be 2-degree compatible. 2-degree compatible doesn't tell anything what it is. You have to explain it in a lot of sentences. But saying you have to go to zero emissions, that's much easier. And then actually it doesn't matter anymore when it is. Yeah, because then it's obvious if you first increase emissions and then decrease emissions, that's probably not an optimal pathway.
Right. And then what about negative emissions? So the conversation now, more of a conversation at least that I've heard in terms of that simply stopping the rate of, or slowing the rate of emissions or stopping emissions is insufficient, that we actually have to, with the new technologies, actually decarbonize what's already there.
I think the most important element here is that we first have to use all of the options to reduce emissions today. And they are available. So there's a lot we can do to use less energy. There's a lot we can do to implement more renewable energy. It's all there, and it's not that expensive. In many cases, it's cheaper than the alternative.
Lastly, from some of the people that I've interviewed, both inside the UNFCCC and outside, have said that you shouldn't expect the government to be the answer for this. You shouldn't expect the United Nations to be the answer for this. That it's going to be the private sector that kind of steps in, that's more used to the kind of aggressive working on targets, producing results, being innovative, transformational thinking and kind of acting, that's going to step in and bridge the gap. So how do you see that?
I'm actually quite optimistic right now about the developments that we see here in Paris. So we track what countries propose, and we see that if we add it all up, we will get to a temperature increase of 2.7 degrees, which is already half a degree to 1 degree better than what we did earlier prior to this process of these national contributions. So that's already good.
Well, I can hear by the construction that they're doing here at the green space that we could be wrapping up, right? So I really so appreciate your time and your expertise and all of your work. And is there anything else that you would want to say, to the citizen out there that's just kind of getting into this, or and it's like, interested in the gap, and are we on track? Are we not on track? What do you want to leave them with?
Yeah, I think if we want to really keep climate change under control and reach this 2-degree limit or 1.5 limit, then we need to do everything we can. Yeah, everything and everywhere. And that's a huge task, and everybody needs to help to do that task. But my hope is that we have all the ingredients to do it. Yeah, we know how to save energy. We know how to implement renewable energy. We have all the tools at hand. We just simply need the political will and the will of the citizens to do it. So the citizens themselves can, one, do it themselves, use less energy and try to live in a way that is climate friendly. And second, they can push their governments, their businesses by buying the right products, their cities, their regions to do more. And if we all pull in that direction, then I think we can all have the benefits from going to a climate-friendly and low-carbon world.
Great. Well, Professor Hohne, thank you very much.
Thank you as well.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you.